Exposed. The terrifying legacy of 12 haunted families cursed by sinister incestuous diseases. The sun shone brightly over Maplewood, casting a deceptive warmth on a neighborhood that hid dark corners of despair. White picket fences, manicured lawns, and idyllic family barbecues created an enticing facade. Yet, as Emily Harper carefully arranged her children's toys in the backyard, she could feel the palpable unease crackling beneath the surface. It was a lingering tension that clung to the air like mist. Rumors whispered through the wind like a chilling breeze, stories of 13 families, living on the neighborhood's periphery, families, shadowed by a legacy of wicked secrets and diseases that didn't just harm bodies, but souls. These tales sent shivers down her spine, yet she dismissed the unease. After all, she had her husband Mark, a tech consultant with gentle blue eyes, and their 2 beautiful children, Lily and Max. They were the perfect family, right? But then, Mrs. Jenkins, the once warm-hearted neighbor, started avoiding Emily's friendly waves. Her eyes, once full of kindness, now darted around as though searching for something just out of sight. Emily's heart raced. The petrifying energy seemed contagious, seeping into her cozy home. Shadows whispered at the edge of her vision, too real to ignore, yet too ghostly to confront. Each night the walls of their home grew thick with unease. She heard whispers, her name barely audible, echoing through the empty halls. Was it the kids' imaginations playing tricks on her? No, it was far too sinister. The laughter of Lily and Max faded into the background, replaced by a bone-chilling feeling that something was terribly wrong. A knock on the door broke her trance. It was Mark, one hand gripping his phone, the other brushing sweat from his forehead. "It's nothing, Em," he insisted, but his voice quivered, and something in his gaze had changed. The phantom shadows thickened, sneaking closer, igniting a primal fear deep within her. He was keeping secrets, a connection to those cursed families? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Each night the spectral visits became more aggressive, nipping at her sanity. One evening, she watched as Mrs. Jenkins, now a phantom lurking in her own front yard, began to unravel a twisted tale of despair. The words fell from her lips as if they were heavy stones, dragging Emily into the murky depths of Maplewood's dark legacy. Just when Emily thought she could piece together the truth, a shadow darted behind her, a sinister figure that wrapped her in icy dread. The air grew thick with expectation. The walls seemed to pulse with an unknown energy. No escape from the murmurs. No way to shield her children from the tempest brewing just outside their door. What had happened to Mrs. Jenkins? What dark horrors lay waiting for her family, hidden among the whispers and shadows? As Emily stood frozen, fear clutching at her heart, the figure whispered her future, a future tied inexplicably to the cursed legacy of the 13 families. Her own family soon to be the next chapter in a never-ending horror. Would Emily dig deep enough to uncover the truth before it consumed her? The chilling realization dawned as the shadows closed in, leaving her teetering on the edge of a nightmare from which there may be no return. The air grew colder as the darkness wrapped around Emily like a suffocating blanket. She could barely breathe. Her heart pounded a rhythm of fear, each thud echoing in her ears as the shadowy figure seemed to loom closer. She turned, half expecting to see Mark standing there, but the space behind her was empty, an abyss of night. Yet, the whispers grew louder as if they were claws scraping at her sanity. "Help us, find us, free us," echoed from the walls, sent icy chills cascading down her spine. It wasn't just her imagination anymore. The house felt as if it was alive, breathing, pulsating with horrors untold. "Mommy?" Lily's small voice broke through the tension, filled with innocent concern from the kitchen doorway. Max stood behind her, wide-eyed and frightened. Emily forced a smile, trying to mask her fear. She stepped toward them, the small flicker of hope she could protect her children too weak against the overwhelming dread. "Everything's fine, sweetheart," Emily said, her voice trembling. Yet, even as she spoke, she wondered whether that was a lie worth telling. They must leave Maplewood. Leave the shadows behind. But how? The surrounding houses seemed to lean in, listening, judging, the eyes of the sinister familial legacy upon them. Mark returned from the garage, wiping his hands on a rag, face pale. "Did you hear that?" The news reporter's voice trailed off as he saw the worry etched on Emily's face. "What's going on?" Just the kids," she replied, desperation lacing her words. "They're just spooked." The stories. He opened his mouth, then closed it, guilt swirling in his eyes. "The stories? Maybe they're more than that. They have to be. I've been digging through old archives. It's bad. The history of these families isn't just tragic, it's horrific." Her pulse quickened. "Mark, what did you find?" His gaze dropped to the floor. "I think it's connected to me, to us." Each word was a dagger, cutting deeper into her already frayed nerves. "My grandfather, he was a part of one of those families." Emily felt the ground beneath her shift. "What?" Panic consumed her. "You never told me." "I had my reasons," Mark snapped, eyes blazing. "I thought it was over, that I was free from it, from them. But I can feel them reaching out. The children, they're at risk, We have to do something." Before a sudden bang against the window caused Emily to shriek. She hurried to see, pressing her hands against the cool glass. There it was, Mrs. Jenkins's ashen face outside. Her eyes were wild, pleading. "You have to listen. It won't let you go. They're coming for your children." Emily recoiled, shock coursing through her. Mark stepped back, his breath unsteady. The weight of their situation crashed down around them. "Mommy!" Lily called again, now frightened. "Get away from the window," Emily commanded. She grabbed the kids, pulling them away. The darkness pulsed outside, hungry for their fear, echoing with the horrors that had plagued Maplewood for generations. Suddenly, all at once, the house shuddered and seemed to shake. Everything felt wrong. "Emily, what do we do?" Mark asked, dread hanging heavily in the air. Just then, the lights flickered, plunging them into a momentary darkness. When they returned, Emily swore she caught sight of figures, faces twisted in anguish, hovering just outside the periphery of her vision. "Mommy, I'm scared," Max whimpered, his voice a whisper lost in the chaos. "Stay close," Emily shouted, her heart racing. As the walls seemed to close in, she felt the very essence of the house shifting. It was alive, pulsating through fear. They had to act, but how to confront the legacy threatening to consume them? In the suffocating dark, with shadows whispering secrets she wasn't ready to hear, Emily made her choice. "Hang on tight. We find a way out. Together." But as they braced themselves, the floorboards creaked ominously. From the shadows, a sinister voice slithered through the air. "You can't escape. This is merely the beginning." Emily's breath hitched. What awaited them in the heart of the darkness? Would they uncover the truth behind the haunting, or would it ensnare them in its ageless grip? Emily's mind raced as she tightened her grip on the children. The oppressive weight of the house bore down like a leaden shroud. "We need a plan," she murmured, desperately searching the dim room for any sign of help. "Mommy, what's that noise?" Max's wide eyes darted toward the kitchen. The air thickened, rippling with an unseen force. The kitchen door creaked slowly, revealing an unsettling sight. The old metal herbs and spices rack dangled precariously, swaying as if brushing against an invisible presence. "It's nothing, honey." Emily forced her voice to be steady. But as the whispers grew into a cacophony, she realized she was lying. The shadows were alive. How could she protect her children if she couldn't even see what threatened them? "Mark, we can't just stand here. We have to do something." Fear clawed at her throat. She glanced at the doorway, where Mrs. Jenkins's ghostly visage lingered, her mouth moving. "What did she say?" "They're connected," Mark whispered, his voice straining under the weight of overwhelming knowledge. It's all tied together, my grandfather's family. Theirs and this house. The curse, it spreads like a disease. Emily trembled at the thought. Their family, their past. Was this why they were trapped in Maplewood? The house responded with a low growl, the walls vibrating as the shadows deepened. Emily, a voice echoed chillingly through the air, warm and inviting yet eerily distant. Come to us, no, she shouted, feeling the air turn frigid. Lily clutched her arm tightly, her small face twisted in confusion and terror. Please, Mommy, make it stop. Her daughter's tears fell like tiny icebergs against Emily's skin, each sob reverberating through her heart. Just then, the power flickered again, plunging everything into darkness. Panic surged through Emily. She could hear the breath of something ancient filling the void, and though she longed to run, she was paralyzed by terror. Light returned abruptly, harshly illuminating a silhouette in the corner. A figure stood there, indistinguishable yet terrifying. Who are you? Mark croaked, his voice tight, eyes wide. But the figure didn't answer. Instead, a hand reached out, fingers curling like a beckoning branch, inviting them closer. Mark, don't, Emily yelled, yanking the children back. But the shadows danced, becoming a vortex that pulled at their very souls. She turned and bolted toward the back door, dragging Max and Lily with her. Defiance burned in her chest, a faint flicker of courage. Here, help me push. She shoved against the door, feeling the chill seep into her bones. Just as the door creaked open, a sudden surge of wind slammed it shut, nearly knocking them off their feet. Emily stumbled, but Mark steadied her, panic etching deep lines into his face. It's no use. We're trapped. No, we won, TB, she shouted, determination flooding her veins. We have to face this together. The house shook violently, the whispers roaring in a violent symphony. Join us, join the legacy. Emily's heart raced. The voices, they were offering something tempting, something sinister. She could feel their pull. Images flashed through her mind, of families torn apart by dark secrets, horror woven into their history like a tapestry. Could the truth, however horrifying, be the key to their escape? Mark, your grandfather, what was he part of? He hesitated, fear tightening his expression. But just then, the whisper returned, more insistent. You must know. The darkness swelled around them, pushing inward, ready to claim them. I have to know. Emily pressed, her voice slicing through the darkness. Tell me, Mark, we might not get another chance. And as her breath caught in her throat, Emily realized the truth was staring her in the face. And with it came a choice more terrifying than she could have ever imagined. What darkest secrets would be unearthed? Would they find the key to break the curse? Or would they be swallowed whole by the legacy hidden in the shadows? As the walls closed in and the sinister voices surrounded them, Emily knew they were not just fighting for their lives. They were battling against the very fabric of their lineage. What lay ahead was a confrontation with their past they could not ignore. Get ready, she whispered to Mark and the kids. We're diving in, and in that moment, beneath the weight of the dark curse, they stepped forward into the depths of the unknown. The moment they stepped into the shadows, the air thickened like a fog, crawling over Emily's skin. The walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting as if the house itself were alive, hungry, waiting. Each breath they took felt like an encroaching weight, pushing them deeper into a web spun from their own nightmares. Mark hesitated, his wide eyes darting around, scanning the twilight for danger. Emily, are you sure? His voice trembled, each word a harsh whisper against the oppressive silence. She turned and their eyes locked. We have to know, Mark. We can't run anymore. Her heart raced, beating a wild rhythm against her ribs. A shudder rippled through the house. Join us, become part of the legacy. The whispers rose in a terrifying crescendo, mixing with the looming darkness. Lily tugged at Emily's jacket, her small fingers icy. Mommy, I don't like this. Max's breath quickened, a nervous hitch in the stifling silence, and Emily felt her resolve waver. They moved cautiously down a narrow corridor, lined with faded portraits that seemed to watch to judge. The painted faces were twisted in expressions of sorrow and rage, as though trapped in eternal torment. One by one, Emily felt the chill of their gazes penetrate her soul. "Mark, I need to know everything now," she urged, her voice low but firm. "What was your grandfather involved in? There's a connection. I can feel it." He hesitated, his voice barely audible. He was part of something dark, a family secret that no one ever talked about. Sacrifices. The word hung between them like a noose. Suddenly, the house creaked ominously, shaking as if it had responded to his admission. The whispers morphed, echoing around them. "Embrace the truth. Fulfill the bond." Emily felt cold sweat trickle down her back. "What bond?" she asked, dread curling in her stomach. Just then, a door at the end of the hall opened slowly, revealing a dimly lit room bathed in shadow and dust. Inside, they could just make out silhouettes. Old furniture shrouded under white sheets, a heavy trunk resting forlornly in the corner, and a large, ornate mirror. They could see their reflections, but also something behind them. "Ssh," Mark hissed, raising his hand. "Did you hear that?" Emily strained to listen, her heart hammering as muffled voices drifted in, a violent whisper of half-formed words. "Blood, sacrifice, return." In that moment, a figure emerged from the shadows, a ghostly apparition in a tattered dress, her face hidden beneath a veil of black hair. "You seek knowledge, Emily," she crooned, her voice like ice sliding down a spine. "The past cannot remain buried. What do you want from us?" Max whimpered, pulling closer to Emily. "I want what was taken," the figure replied, eyes glinting like shards of glass. "Your family's promise must be fulfilled. Show me the blood." "Make the offering." Panic surged through Emily. "No, we're not part of any." The mirror suddenly shattered with a deafening crash, splintering into 1,000 reflective shards that glimmered like stars scattered across the floor. A force whipped through the room, knocking them to their knees. Shadows writhed and twisted around them. As the room transformed, echoes of laughter and despair spiraling through the air. "Join us or lose everything," the voices howled like a tempest. Emily's vision swam with terror, the room spinning out of control. "Mark," she screamed, gripping her son and daughter. "We have to get out." But as they scrambled to their feet, the shadows thickened, wrapping around their ankles like serpents, pulling them back towards the mirror's edge. The figure stepped closer, her face coming into focus, a disturbing semblance of Emily, twisted by anguish and rage. Emily felt the chill seep into her bones. The legacy spoke through the figure, drawing them in, threatening to swallow them all whole. It's too late to turn back. As they fought against the encroaching darkness, Emily's heart raced. The curse was alive in them, a living entity binding their fate to a truth they had yet to uncover. What horrors awaited them? Would they be consumed by the legacy, or could they break free from the chains of their lineage? And as the floor shifted beneath them, the choice loomed ahead like an unending abyss. Would they embrace the truth, or would the past claim them forever? In the depths of unfolding darkness, one truth echoed louder than all others. The fight for their survival had just begun. The air around them crackled with a terrible energy, a maelstrom of fear and desperation spiraling into a frantic dance. Emily's breath caught in her throat, a mere whisper against the cacophony of voices consuming the room. "Mark, we have to move." She tugged at her children's hands, but they were rooted, enthralled by the figure, caught in a riddle that began to reveal its teeth. "Mommy, I can't." Lily's voice quivered, eyes wide, unable to break free from the pull of the apparition. "Run," Emily screamed, yanking Lily hard enough to pull her back, but the shadows tightened their grip. Max struggled in her other hand, a look of terror mingled with confusion. The ghostly figure loomed closer, its veil billowing around it like smoke. "The truth has a taste," it hissed, "and it craves blood." Mark stumbled backward, eyes darting, frantically searching for an escape. "What do we do?" But Emily didn't have the answers. All she could see were the shimmering shards of glass scattered like dangerous stars on the floor. It was an echo of something she couldn't name, a fear that twisted in her gut. "We need to find a way out," she urged again. A wall of shadows surged forward, enveloping them in a thick, choking fog, the whispers crescendoing to a frenetic pitch. "You can't escape, you belong to us, fulfill our calling." Desperate, Emily turned to face the figure. "You're lying. We're not part of this." Her voice wavered, yet she fought to maintain her fierce tone. "Whatever curse you claim, it ends here." The figure moved like smoke through air, hovering inches from Emily's face. "You cannot deny your blood. The bond is forged in silence, nurtured by despair." The wind howled, a keening wail snaking through the house, carrying with it guttural sounds of sorrow, soft yet haunting. Emily's heart raced as she stumbled back. Her foot kicked a piece of the shattered mirror, sending it skittering across the floor. The glint of sharp edges caught her eye. "Mark, the mirror." As she pointed, it struck something deep in him, flickering a glimmer of recognition in Marcus' terrified gaze. "Maybe it can help us," he gasped. But the figure lunged, a swift shadow aiming to intercept. "Futile!" it shrieked, but Emily was already moving, her adrenaline surging. With all her might, she grabbed the largest shard of glass, the sharp gleam like both a weapon and a reflection of their fears. "Stay back," she shouted, wielding the piece like a sword, determination flooding her veins. The figure recoiled slightly, its shadowy form flickering as if the light held power it hadn't expected. "Defiance?" The apparition screeched, a mixture of rage and despair twisting its features. "No more." The legacy demands. Max's eyes widened, terror giving way to sudden understanding. "It's afraid," he shouted, glancing up at Emily with fierce resolve. "Mom, we can fight it." Spurred on by their shared courage, Emily felt a surge of hope. "We are stronger than this," she affirmed, rallying her children. "We can break the bond." The force of the shadows wailed louder, whipping around them like the backlash of a storm. The twisted faces from the portrait-lined hallway seemed to cheer them on, chanting features of relief and longing. The whole house echoed with centuries of pain, yearning for liberation. "Show us your strength," the figure screamed, but as it lunged for them, it hesitated, the glass shard glimmering brightly as if sparked by their defiance. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted from the shard, illuminating the room, the figure's face distorting in horror. "We are not yours to take," Emily cried, thrusting the glass forward, aiming directly at the figure. But as the light swelled, the ground beneath them began to tremble violently, echoing the pulse of the house itself. The shadows around them churned like a living entity, roaring in rage as the veil lifted. And just as suddenly as it began, everything went dark. Heart pounding, Emily gasped for breath, the pressure collapsing around them. What had happened? Had they won or lost? Terror danced on the edge of her sanity as the echoes of their legacy beckoned from every corner. As silence draped over them like a heavy shroud, a chilling realization dawned. They were not yet free. They could be caught in something far worse. "Mom?" Max whispered, and in that lingering darkness, all they could do was await the revelation of what they had awakened. What awaited them beyond the dark, in this house that felt more like a predator than a protector? Would their lineage define their fate, or could they rewrite the story penned in blood and shadows? Whatever lay ahead promised dire consequences, and the clock was ticking. Emily's heart raced, each beat echoing in the suffocating silence that surrounded them. This was not the comfort of her home. The darkness pressed against her, thick and heavy, like a weight too great to bear. "Where are we?" Lily's small voice trembled beside her. That simple question twisted like a knife in Emily's gut. She couldn't answer. How could she reassure her children when she herself felt lost? "Stay close," Emily shouted, the command cutting through the haze, but even her voice felt hollow, swallowed up in the blackness that enveloped them. Max clutched her hand tighter. What happened to the ghost? He peered into the shadows, filled with dread yet desperate for answers. "I don't know, but we have to be ready," Emily whispered, summoning courage, even as her skin prickled cold with dread. They were not done yet. Not by a long shot. The silence fractured, and Emily felt something shift in the air. A chill snaked down her spine. It was the room, or was it the house? Something within it breathed, an indiscernible pulse vibrating through the floorboards. A low growl froze her blood. "What's that?" Mark stammered, clearly as scared as the others. "Just stay together." Emily felt her resolve hardening. If whatever was lurking was after them, she would fight it all the way. "We break the curse together." Suddenly, the darkness shuddered and wavered. Shadows morphed like wisps of smoke, whispering promises and threats. "You were chosen," it breathed, a guttural voice that slithered inside her head. "Your blood binds you to us." "No," Emily shouted, defiance surging in her chest. "We are not yours." With every ounce of her strength, she pulled the children closer, their frightened faces illuminated by a tiny glimmer from the shard still clenched in her fist. It flickered like a dying star, a reminder of their fight. As if drawn to the light, the shadows recoiled. "The blood, it sings with their sin." The howl pierced the darkness, a sinister chorus of despair and longing. A vision of twisted faces flashed before them, remnants of souls entwined in the house's dark history. "Mom, the mirror!" Max's urgency snapped Emily to attention. With swift resolve, she turned the shard toward the swirling shadows. "Look," Lily pointed. "It's like they're afraid of it." "Then let us use it." Emily felt adrenaline course through her veins as she stepped forward, the glass reflecting tiny shards of light, creating a shimmering wall against the darkness. But the malevolent pulse of the house wouldn't let go. The shadows writhed and lunged, grappling for their bodies with whispering tendrils that dripped malice. "Fight it! We are stronger!" she roared, brandishing the shard like a shield. "We decide our fate." The shadows hesitated, confusion rippling through the dark mass. Sensing their vulnerability, Emily surged forward, the glass catching the feeble light and reflecting it into the very heart of the darkness. "Stop!" the entity screeched. "You belong to the legacy." In that tumultuous instant, the weight of years of anguish pressed down on her. Memories of their ancestors tortured by the same fate flashed in Emily's mind. But she would not succumb. "No more!" she screamed, plunging the glass forward. A blinding light erupted, more intense than before, and the pulse of the house faltered. The darkness shrieked, writhing as if set ablaze. But as the light faded, Emily gasped. A new fear gripped her heart. Had she unleashed something worse? Beneath her feet, the floorboards began to splinter and crack. Light seeped through the cracks, revealing ancient markings that pulsed with a sinister glow, mocking her every word. Then, a familiar voice broke through the chaos, low and ominous, sending shivers racing down her spine. "You think you can escape? This is only the beginning." With that, the shadows lunged back, bulging like a tide. Emily braced herself, her children's hands squeezing hers tighter, anticipation and horror coiling in her gut. What would emerge from this dark chasm that held on to them so desperately? Was there a chance to truly rewrite their fate, or had she placed them in a cage far worse than the one they fought to escape? The ground shook beneath them, as if the house had awakened from centuries of slumber, hungry and vengeful. Emily's breath came in ragged gasps. The shadows surged forward again, a swirling mass of anguish and rage, seeking to reclaim what they had lost, her and her children. "Hold on. Just hold on," she urged, squeezing their hands so hard she feared she might break them. But the children stood firm, their resolve igniting her own. The crack in the floorboards widened, flickering with an otherworldly light that illuminated ancient symbols clawing at the surface, shapes that whispered secrets of the past. Emily felt a throb in her head, a resonance that threatened to drown her. With each pulse, memories swelled up like tidal waves, family names etched in shame, stories of betrayal and darkness marking their lineage. "What's happening?" Max cried, his voice quivering. "Stay close," Emily barked again, forcing the words through the fear that bubbled in her throat. She couldn't let the dread seep in. They were fighting back. They had a weapon. "Mom, what's the mirror doing?" Lily's eyes darted to the shard, now glowing with a fierce white light that cut through the gloom. It pulsed in rhythm with the shadows' thrumming fury, battling against the sinister force pressing in on all sides. "It's protecting us," Emily said, though she wasn't so sure. Suddenly, the wall of shadow twisted, revealing fleeting glimpses of faces, trapped souls writhing in torment, mouths opening wide in silent screams. Emily staggered back, feeling sick. Were these echoes of what they could become? A chill cascaded over her skin as the certainty settled in her bones. They might have awakened something ancient and terrible. "Look," Max shouted, pointing to the light shining through the cracks in the floor. "It's the same as the shard. We can use it," Emily said, an idea sparking in her mind. "We need to create a path. We must find a way out." She turned the shard toward the glowing markings, pouring every ounce of her strength into the fractured moment, chanting softly the words of a forgotten prayer her grandmother had taught her. The light intensified, flooding the room as it fought back against the creeping shadows. But the shadows didn't retreat. They swarmed, morphing into grotesque shapes that merged into the figures of her ancestors, their eyes burning with rage. Their mouths stretched open in cries of despair, carrying the weight of a legacy that clawed at Emily's heart. "Join us," they implored, their voices a haunting echo that clawed at her mind. "You cannot escape what's yours." "No," she screamed, fighting against the guilt that wrapped around her soul like a vine. "I refuse to be part of this. I will break the cycle." The heated pulse of the shard ignited, illuminating the faces of her children, shocked, terrified, innocent. Emily's heart twisted with determination. She could not let them be consumed by this history. They were the new dawn, and she would fight for them. Suddenly, the floorboards gave way, a gaping maw opening beneath them. Emily's stomach dropped as the shadowy figures surged forward, as if desperate to drag them down into the abyss. "Jump!" she yelled without thinking. She tugged the children, making a reckless leap toward the glowing cracks, praying it would lead them to safety. As they fell, the world above twisted and unfurled, the shadows reaching, clawing, screeching in fury. The darkness enveloped them, and then stillness. Silence wrapped around them, a thick blanket of uncertainty. The glow faded, and Emily landed hard on something solid but cold, instinctively rolling to protect her children. They huddled close, trembling and gasping for breath, surrounded by an eerie quiet. "What happened?" Max whispered, eyes darting around. "I don't know," Emily breathed, scanning their surroundings. Shadows lingered, whispering promises of despair, but there was no sign of the house. "Are we safe?" But before she could finish her thought, a faint voice rippled through the darkness, chilling her to the core. "You cannot escape your roots. They will find you again." A flicker of dread slithered down her spine. What if they had only traded one form of terror for another? What lay waiting in the shadows of this new abyss? Would they rise from the past, or had they truly escaped the darkness for now? The cold enveloped them like a tight cloak, pressing against their skin, making it feel like it was stretching to the breaking point. Emily's heart raced. The silence was heavy, suffocating, felt unnatural, wrong. The shadows lingering just outside the perimeter of faint light gave her unease, as if they were watching them, waiting. "Mom?" Lily's voice was barely a whisper, her small hand trembling in Emily's grip. "We'll find a way," Emily said, though each word felt heavier than the last. She forced herself to glance around. They were in a space that felt far too vast, confining. Dark corners swirled with anonymity, as if every inch was hiding secrets that had no place here. Then a sound. A soft skittering, like fingernails scratching against stone. From deep within the shadows came the unsettling echo of whispers, overlapping murmurings threading together words that sent chills racing down Emily's spine. The legacy, the roots, they twisted through the air, curling around her body like tendrils. "What does it want?" Max asked, his eyes wide with fear. Emily gritted her teeth. "I don't know." She tucked her children closer. The past was creeping closer, its claws out, seeking them out. Suddenly, the ground shifted again, the solid surface beneath them began to pulse, the rhythm quickening. Emily's instincts screamed at her. Stay together. She yanked Lily and Max toward her. Their fingers intertwined, grounding her. And then they appeared. Figures dissolving from the darkness, highlighted by sickly, flickering light. They wore expressions of agony, mouths frozen in cries of despair. Yet the sounds evaporated, leaving them voiceless. Bloodshot eyes pierced through Emily, echoes of her ancestry wrapped in suffering. Reaching out with hands that shouldn't be there. No, Emily shouted, shaking her head violently. You can't have us. But the shadows were relentless. They lunged forward, elongating impossibly, a tide of despair rolling over her. Emily felt the air grow thick, panic clawing at her chest. Were they truly running from their past, or racing toward it? Lily's small voice pierced through the turmoil. Mom, look! She pointed at the shards of light weaving through the shadows a path, a thread of hope amidst the chaos. Emily locked her gaze onto it. Come on, she urged. We have to go. Heart pounding, she led her children toward the luminescence. But the phantom figures followed, trailing behind like mist. Their sorrow prickled at the air, thickening it, making every breath feel laden with dread. Join us, they murmured, each syllable drawing Emily back. You belong to us. You cannot escape. No, she cried again, pushing forward. The glow grew brighter as they surged toward it. But then the figures lunged, clawed hands almost grazing her back. The darkness exploded around them, shadows curling, pressing in as if to crush their very spirit. Run! Emily shouted, and they fled, hearts pounding, adrenaline pumping like a storm. What if they were locked in an endless cycle? The weight of her family's tainted past pressed down on her, heavy as stone. She gripped the shard tighter, willing it to guide them. As they reached the glow, reality began to twist and unfurl again, pushing them forward. But just as they were about to plunge into the luminescent light, a flash of a face appeared, a grotesque mockery of hope, a relative long lost, their eyes glimmering with malice. Run, but darkness will always be waiting. The glow consumed them, and with it, the horrifying promise of what lay beyond. What awaited them in this next realm? Freedom or further curse? The air crackled with uncertainty, dark winds whispering foreboding warnings. They were not finished yet. Mom, what's next? Max shivered, as the light began to shift, revealing figures once more, figures of anguish, their roots entwined with the family's past. And the chilling realization washed over Emily. They'd only just begun to peel back the layers of their dark legacy. The light swallowed them whole, a blinding blaze that felt both heavenly and hellish. Emily stumbled, her grip slipping from Lily and Max. The world twisted and morphed around them. Colors bled together, curling in on themselves, as they were hurled from one realm of darkness into another. The brightness faded slowly, revealing a vast expanse that felt surreal yet stifling. The air was heavy with an unmistakable scent, a mix of decay and something sweeter, almost inviting. It was a landscape they couldn't comprehend. Grass that shifted like waves, hills curving into ominous shapes, resembling twisted figures that seemed to writhe under a heady gloom. Mom? Lily's voice was small, a quiver of uncertainty drawing Emily's attention to her daughter. Stay close, Emily commanded, her words slicing through the thick atmosphere. The horizon teemed with distant shadows, flickering like candle flames, daring them to approach. Max pointed ahead. What's that? Figures emerged, echoing the lost souls they had seen in the dark. They drifted like phantoms, faces contorted in anguish, their forms sculpted from the very air around them, a nightmarish tapestry bearing more resemblance to a cursed art installation than to anything human. Emily felt bile rising in her throat. This place was a theater for the damned. Suddenly, one figure stepped forward, the light catching its features. It was a man worn and skeletal, with sunken cheeks and eyes that glimmered with a desperate plea. You shouldn't have come here, he rasped, his voice like rusted metal. Who are you? Max asked, voice trembling. A messenger, the man replied, scanning the area with a blend of panic and sorrow. This land holds the remnants of your bloodline's choices that bind you to their sins. Emily's heart dropped. The man's words resonated through her core. This wasn't just a dream. It was a reckoning. How do we get out? The man knelt, his bony fingers tracing patterns in the dirt symbols, ancient runes that seemed to hum with an unearthly energy. To flee the cycle, you must confront what has been hidden. Understand the root of your family's agony. Mom, I don't want to be here, Lily whimpered, hugging herself tightly. We'll figure it out, Emily said, battling her rising terror. We have to stick together. We want to be consumed. But as soon as she finished speaking, the landscape began to shift again. The ground trembled, waves of emotion crashing over them, threatening to drown out hope. The shadows danced closer, malevolent whispers wrapping around Emily's heart like a vice. Return to us no, she shouted, clamping her hands against her ears, wanting to block it all out. Lily cried out, pointing behind them. Mom, look! A gathering of figures loomed, faces contorted in rage and sorrow. They beckoned with clawed hands, their pleas blending into a cacophony that nearly broke Emily's resolve. You cannot escape your legacy. Join us, join our eternal suffering. Desperation gnawed at her. What do we do? She demanded, her voice shaking with the weight of her dread. The messenger's gaze locked onto hers with a fiery intensity. You must find the truth hidden within your family's past. Only then can you sever the ties. Then, unexpectedly, a door began to materialize in the darkness, glowing softly amidst the chaos. Hope flickered in Emily's chest. We go through that. No, the man rasped, panic flooding his features. Not yet. You need to prepare. The past is more terrifying than you know. But it was too late. Their feet had already begun to carry them forward toward the shimmering door. Darkness writhed behind them, tightening its grip, as if it were contextualizing a final statement. Every choice shapes your destiny, and this choice may lead to doom. Would they step into freedom, or plunge deeper into horror? As the door loomed closer, Emily glanced back, her heart racing. The darkness hissed and curled like smoke, whispering promises of power and terror. Mom, we can't.
Max cried.
You've already begun to unravel the truth, the messenger warned. But it will cost you more than you can imagine. And just as they reached for the door, Emily felt the pull of past horrors surge forth, threatening to drag them back into the void from which they had come. What awaited them beyond the door? A shudder ran through Emily as she felt the familiar weight of dread press against her chest. The darkness churned behind them like a living beast, hungry and relentless. Her heart raced. Time was running out. Together, she shouted, turning to look at her kids. We can't let them take us. Lily's and Max's faces were pale, but their resolve mirrored Emily's own. They clasped each other's hands, creating a united front against the chaos that threatened to consume them. They took one step closer to the shimmering door. It's time to break the cycle, Emily yelled over the rising cacophony. The shadows leaped forward, shrieking and twisting, desperate to reclaim what had been lost to them. A terrifying chorus of voices clamored in her mind, echoing the very doubts she sought to leave behind. This is who you are. Join us, they wailed. No, Emily shot back, her voice ringing with fierce conviction. We are not our past. They were inches from the door. With a heart full of defiance, Emily took a deep breath and stepped forward, dragging the kids with her. Bursting through the door felt like shattering glass. Light engulfed them, overtaking the shadows, the warmth soft and welcoming compared to the bitter chill they'd just escaped. Yet, as they stepped into this new world, they found themselves in a familiar, yet twisted version of Maplewood. The grassy lawns were overgrown. The once friendly houses now stood abandoned, their windows like hollow eyes, staring with judgment. A thick haze hung in the air, dense and oppressive. Where are we? Max asked, eyes wide with fear and wonder. This is our past, Emily replied, shaking as she grasped the reality of it. They were standing at the edge of their own family's history. The whispered tales, the rumors, the sinister legacy they had tried to outrun. As she looked around, The air crackled with energy, tugging at her mind like fingers itching to reveal long-buried secrets. In that moment, everything clicked. She had to confront her family's history if they were ever to break free. Mark, Emily turned, searching his gaze for solidarity. We need to know what happened with your grandfather. Still tied to us. Mark swallowed hard and nodded, the weight of their shared dread mirrored in his eyes. My grandfather was part of something forbidden. A pact, a curse he thought he escaped its grasp. But we're the inheritors of this madness. Then we got to face it, she said, her heart hammering but determination sparking her soul. Or else it consumes us forever. Just then, a figure appeared from the haze. A woman with the same stark features as Mark, but twisted into a mask of torment. The air chilled as she approached, her voice a screech of despair. You cannot escape the truth. The blood binds you. It will always find you. Emily felt her breath catch in her throat. They were indeed trapped in a cycle. But there was power in facing it, uncovering its roots. Show us, she demanded, wrapping her arms around Lily and Max protectively. Let us see. The woman grimaced, eyes narrowing with hesitant fury. You truly wish to bear witness? The truth can cut deeper than the darkest shadows. Yes, Max shouted, voice filled with sudden courage at seeing his mother so strong. We can handle it. With a flick of her wrist, shadows and light swirled around them, images flashing in a spiraling vortex. Memories of pain, twisted relationships, sacrifices made in despair flooded their minds, echoes of broken promises, hearts crushed under the weight of sin. Each image racked their unity, gnawing at their resolve. Faced with the torment and anguish of their forebears, Emily felt her heart shattering. But with each recollection, she held firm, unclenching her grip on the children even as the past closed in like a storm. This ends with us, she shouted into the chaos. We will not be broken. We will choose our future. The swirling shadows thrashed wildly, a thunderous shriek erupting from the woman before them as she fell to her knees. A blend of anger and anguish painted across her spectral face. Your refusal to yield may lead to your ruin. But Emily wouldn't back down. She had witnessed enough. With steely resolve, she gathered her children close. We are more than the darkness that sought to claim us. We are a new beginning. And she pushed forward against the tide of her own lineage, her voice ringing clear and fierce. We are breaking the curse. In that moment, the shadows paused, rippling like water. Each whisper turned into a gasp, each lament softening to surrender. The woman looked up, surprise flickering in her eyes as if seeing the truth for the first time. Your courage is unmatched, she breathed, anguish rebuilding into something shifting. Perhaps it's not too late. I will free us all, Emily vowed. The shadows her family's past quivered, and for the first time, she saw flickers of light in the eyes of those once consumed by darkness. Suddenly, the air warmed, the heaviness dissipating. Colors began to brighten around them, light breaking through the veil of despair, scattering the shadows. Together, Emily said to her children, we can create a future unbound by this legacy. As her voice rang out, Emily felt the weight of generations release its grasp. They were no longer prisoners of haunted pasts. The darkness ebbed, retreating as light flooded back into their hearts. Maplewood transformed. The wilted grass grew lush once more, sun soaking through the once ominous skies. We did it, shouted Max, laughter bubbling from him for the first time in what felt like an eternity. Lily jumped in excitement and clutched her brother's hand tight. We're free, Mommy. And as Emily embraced her children, she felt a heartening warmth enveloping her soul. The ghosts were no longer vengeful shadows. They were remnants of history, whispering their tales with gratitude rather than dread. Goodbye, she whispered to the fading shadows, her heart swelling with triumph. We are rewriting our own legacy. And in that powerful moment of unity, Emily knew deep within. They would not just survive. They would thrive, free from the specters that sought to hold them captive. The curse was broken, and an unshakable hope blossomed in the fertile ground of their newfound freedom. Emily turned to Mark, and as their eyes met, She understood that their journey together had just begun anew. "Let us go home," she said, feeling the warmth of the sun on her back as they stepped forward together, ready to face whatever awaited them next, united and stronger than ever. Now, before you go, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us reach more amazing fans like you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending because we want to hear from each and every one of you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us spread the word and break the cycle together.